What's going on, YouTube? We are back here on the Fumble Pod today. We got a little quick one. We got some college football we're going over. We made our picks last week, and we had a pretty good week, if I do say so myself. I am your host, Dalton Lee, of here, the Fumble Pod. Let's dive right on into them. So we had our three big games we talked about, and our fourth little ACC that we wanted to touch on. So we're gonna start off with a little ACC one because that's of the three most irrelevant. NC State went to Pitt, played Pitt, and point spread was 5.5 in favor of Pitt. And we picked Pitt to win, and boy, were we right. We thought it was going to be like 38-35. We got the state number right. They got 34, but they allowed 53 points. I mean, I knew the state defense wasn't that good, but my goodness, what are we doing? What are we like? It's almost to a point now where you really got to be going after this coach because, I mean, they might not have the talent, realistically speaking. They do on offense. I think their offense is pretty good. I mean, if your team scores 34 or more, I mean, you would think, there's a good chance they won that game. But when you're giving up 53 points, when you got a quarterback that looks like he's just sitting there playing 7-on-7, what do you expect? CJ Bailey can't do it all. Hollywood Smothers cannot do it all. I mean, Joe Lee got in on touchdown looking like Greg Jennings. You know, had a little hamstring issue, but he's carrying the team on his back. Didn't matter though. Didn't matter. State is winless. Well, I say winless. I don't know if the Wake Forest game counts as an ACC conference win or not. But since the Wake Forest game in middle of September, they have yet to win another meaningful football game. I mean, they beat up on Campbell, but it's Campbell. They haven't won a meaningful football game since. And you look at the rest of their schedule, they're trying to become bowl eligible. You're going to have to beat either two ranked teams or two middle of the pack teams. You have to beat either Florida State and UNC, or you got to manage to beat Miami and Georgia Tech. There is in theory a world where State only finishes the season with 5 wins. There is a world. I don't know what's gonna happen if they aren't bowl eligible. I feel like Dave Doran has to go at this point because if your standard is still going to be of your next 4 games, you win one, but you beat Carolina. If that's your standard, it's a joke of a program. That's all I'm gonna touch on that one. Now let's get to the meaning football. Okay, so 12 o'clock game was number 8 Ole Miss traveling number 13 Oklahoma. Spread was 5.5 point favorites for Oklahoma, and we almost picked this score correctly. If I do recall, I didn't have the correct scores pulled up, but let me get you those. We predicted it to be 38-28, and I want to say we got close to that realm. Honestly, do 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 do. I mean, 34-26. I mean, we were right in the ballpark. But Ole Miss at first kind of felt like that Georgia game where, they come out strong. They let Oklahoma get right back into it, and then they got a little stagnant. But then defense made a play or two, and then in that fourth quarter, they just kind of rolled through and got the big win. I mean, that is a big time win for them. Get back in the win column after you kind of gave a game away to Georgia. Big confidence boost. I mean, I think Lane Kiffin called a great game, and the offense made plays when they needed to. But again, Oklahoma, I like Mateer, but since coming back from the injury, he just hasn't looked right. And still doesn't really look right. And it's going to hurt them. I mean, it's already hurting them this year, but they have to figure out how to build a sustainable offense. I mean, passing the ball wise, I mean, he didn't have a turnover on the day, but 17, 31, 223 yards and a touchdown. And he did not even. No, he did have some rushes. I mean, they didn't have sustained running game throughout the day like Ole Miss really did. It was more so just a couple pot plays and then passing the ball. But Ole Miss, that team is talented. I like that team. I like Lane Kiffin. I like the way he's coaching up that team. They could be a sleeper team to maybe sneak into that Final Four once we get to postseason play. But with the rest of the Ole Miss's schedule, they could probably finish the year with one loss and still have a very good chance to get into the SEC championship, pending how the rest of the league games play out for them in the SEC, which is always changing. Big changes. We'll get to that one in a minute. But before we get to what was our 3:30 game, we are going to talk about one game that actually was like surprisingly close. We didn't talk about it any because I didn't feel the need to talk about it. Number 4 Alabama going into Florence, South Carolina to play the Gamecocks, and I didn't really pay no mind to it because it's number 4 Alabama, and South Carolina had not looked good all year. So I thought they were just going to steamroll and we were going to move on with our lives. No. This game, with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, was tied 22 all. South Carolina came to play, and Alabama did not have a great day. And South Carolina just gave them the win, pissed it away, gave it to Alabama. You had them on the ropes, and I mean that's 2 years in a row you've been right there to beat them, and you just fall short. And I think it hurts more. It hurt more last year because you saw how the rest of your season played out, and you're like, if we had flipped that game, we might get into the postseason. Whereas this year, I mean, your season's kind of over with already, so you don't really care as much. But it still hurts, especially if you're a fan. I got a buddy who's a fan. He was at the game. He wasn't super happy. He was happy at times, but in the end result, he was not super thrilled, to say the least. But Alabama gets away with a close little stinker right there. They got away with one. Now let's get to our 3:30, which we were wrong on. We went 3-1 this week. This was the one loss. Number 15 Missouri went to number 10 Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt was 2.5 point favorites. And I was like, I like what Missouri's got going on. I think they got a good defense, and it really was kind of a defensive. You can call it defensive slugfest, or you can call it just piss poor offense. I'd say it was a bit of both, but it really was kind of an ugly game. But a couple big plays were made in it, and Vanderbilt was able to sneak out with a win. I think whatever you feel about Diego Pavia, whether you think he's great, whether you think he's mid, he just finds a way to be able to make some winning plays in big time moments, and he's done it several times this year. Did it against LSU. Thought he was going to have that chance against Alabama with that start they had, and just through and through in these close games, he's able to just gut out some wins. And honestly, in late October, early November, right before you're getting ready for conference championships, that's just what you need in a close game. You just need to be able to gut them out and get through them and get to the next week. Especially if you're a ranked opponent playing against somebody ranked, all you gotta do is gut out a win. These are the best time of years because you have two teams that are truly fighting for these games versus week 1, week 2, where you're learning everybody, you're learning the offense still, you're trying to get into a rhythm. Now is when you're in a rhythm and you truly got two teams fighting it out. This is the best time of year. Truly is. I love this time of year of football. But, I mean, Missouri didn't have a great day. Couldn't really do a whole lot. I mean, the passing game wasn't really there. And the running game was, the running game was there, but you have 170 yards on 41 carries. It kind of showed that there was a lack of passing there, whereas you're looking at Vanderbilt, who had 26 for 136, and you had two guys carrying the team on their backs. I mean, the only difference maker really was just late game execution. and that goes to Vanderbilt. They had the better late game execution in this matchup. And then we get to our 7:30 primetime game. Number 3 A&M rolling into Baton Rouge. Play the LSU Tigers. And at halftime, LSU was up. I think it was 18-10, 18-9, something weird. I was like, uh-oh. Marcel Reed, first half looked not great, but he still made a couple good plays outside of the one interception in the red zone. We were like, uh-oh. Lights too bright. Baton Rouge, still Baton Rouge. Yeah, it felt like that, and then in a matter of halfway through the third quarter, it didn't feel like that anymore. I mean, A&M just in the second half did whatever they want. Marcel Reed looked great. The running attack looked great. Casey Concepcion had a day. He had a receiving touchdown and a punt return touchdown. I know State fans are mad. Let that guy walk out the building. But this game was so bad for LSU to have a decent first half and be like, okay, you can build off of this, to only put up one touchdown in the second half and allow your opponent to score 40 plus points in the second half. Yeah, you got to make some changes, and they are. They're making big changes. As of today, Monday, the 2 days after. Well, actually, I think he technically got fired on Sunday. Brian Kelly's gone. Not even full 4 years at LSU. A buyout of $50+ million just gone. And now you got to start looking at it as, who let down who. And I do think Brian Kelly is a really good coach. We saw what he did at Notre Dame all those years. We saw him throw a little slander saying, it's hard to win a national championship when you don't get all the recruits. And you go to LSU and you're like, okay, get all the recruits. And he got decent recruits. He had a Heisman winner in Jaden Daniels. Had yet to make a SEC championship or a playoff berth. I think this was more so of, I think LSU still is a great talent pool. I think they're able to get all the talent they want. I just don't think Brian Kelly meshes there well. And I think what he wants to do with a football team doesn't work well in LSU. LSU has, at least from what I remember, I don't remember the Saban years at LSU. I always remember Saban as head coach at Alabama Crimson Tide. So I don't remember what they were back in the early 2000s. I remember the best version of LSU I seen was the Joe Burrow year, and that team was just able to do it all. They were flashy, they were fun, and it felt like Brian Kelly was trying to fake being fun. I mean, day one, I remember that press conference when he got hired. Day one, rolled up there and was answering questions with a fake Southern Cajun accent. From there, we really should have known, like, okay, this isn't going to work. But, after the first year or two, there was hope. There was hope. He had a couple big wins. He had some ugly losses, but you give him grace. It was early. He was like, he's building from scratch. LSU hadn't been good since Joe Burrow really left. And then, they got decent, but then after that, it was just like, kind of like James Franklin. Granted, he had a bigger leash, but you get to these big games and LSU wouldn't show up. I remember last year in Baton Rouge at 7:30, played Alabama. Alabama hadn't really been. They've been up and down all year with Jalen Milroe and a freshman Ryan Williams, and I remember them getting the break speed off of them by that Alabama team. And I think at that point was when it was like, okay, you can get the team to a good spot, but then when they got to go against equal, or say you're the underdog, you're not really showing up a whole lot. I understand he had upset Alabama, I think his second year there. But after that, didn't really do that a whole lot. So I do think it's a good move, I think, for LSU in the long term. And I think now that's the best job opening out there in college football. Because you would look at I would look at it as this. I would look at LSU, Penn State, and Florida are probably the best jobs available. Just because if you go there, you already got the name. They've already got the talent pools. It's just a matter of, can you coach them and get them to where they're trying to go? Mainly LSU and Florida. I think those are the two better jobs. Not saying Penn State's a bad job. It's just I, the thing with Penn State is I feel like they always get good recruits at every position except quarterback, right? I can't think of a quote unquote great Penn State quarterback. There's been some really good ones. Drew Aller is solid. I remember when Trace McSorley was out there slinging that rock. But when I think of LSU, they had Joe Burrow. They had, say what you want in college, Jamarcus Russell was solid. They had Jaden Daniels. And then you go to Florida, they had Tebow. Cam Newton was his third string guy. He went on to Auburn and won a national championship. The great defenses at LSU and Florida. Phenomenal. So I think between LSU and Florida, those are the two better jobs. Granted, you could make the argument Penn State might be a better job because you wouldn't have to be world beaters to potentially compete in the Big Ten and make a playoff appearance. Whereas in the SEC, you're always going to have your 2 or 3 top tier teams. But then if you're in that 4 to 7 range, you're probably only got 2 losses and are making very good arguments to be like, we should be in the playoff. But if you're a 1-loss team in the Big Ten, that still probably gets you a conference championship. Hell, 2 losses probably gets you in that conference championship up there. So it's shocking to me. I read a stat. I can't remember who provided the stat. I saw it. So far throughout this year, it's not even November yet, but there's already been a total of $168 million in buyout money owed to coaches. And the main ones are Penn State, Florida, and LSU. Those are your bigger ones. You got some of the smaller ones, like UCLA and Virginia Tech, those type of jobs, but it's a lot of money to be thrown around. So you got that money's getting paid to coaches to not coach. And you got to turn around and write another check for anywhere north of $12 million a year for your new head coach to come in. And then they're going to ask for more money so they can pay recruits and probably try to keep what good talent those teams have. Because I do think all 3 teams have talent. I think it's just a matter of they were having identity issues and maybe they were overvaluing certain players and it just didn't work. But you still got to pay them some money. That's the weird world we live in with the NIL. But to finish up my thoughts on the game, A&M looked great. The defense in the second half came out firing. Mike Elko, I remember the few good years at Duke. That defense was always flying around. At A&M, that defense is flying around, making plays. The offense looks like they're in a great rhythm. They're, I would say, on the cusp of starting to creep into that upper echelon tier of great teams. There's still some things they got to clean up. Some of the turnovers can be a little sloppy. I think Marcel Reed sometimes likes to run a little too quick and not let a play develop and make a throw. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And right now they're just at a point where it's not broken. So there's no need to really change a whole lot. Obviously each week you're going into it trying to be better than the last. But despite this LSU team, a 18 to 9, 18 to 7 lead, and it just come roaring out in the second half. It was a performance that was good enough to get Brian Kelly out of town. So credit to A&M. But that's all I got for this week, man. It was real quick, simple to the point, but there were some big games. They were all great. It was a great time watching them. I can't wait for this week. We got more big matchups, more conference play that's going to determine, who's the home team, who's the away team. Maybe somebody's sneaking in, taking a spot, and we're like, oh. So I cannot wait to go over this upcoming week's schedule. But if you're new here, subscribe, hit the notifications, let you know when we got more content coming out. Like and comment, man. Let me know what your thoughts are on some of these games, or if there was a game I didn't talk about that you thought is being underrated, overlooked, being like, hey, this game was important for XYZ. Would love to pick some people's brains. But until next time, deuces.